All right, guys, this is gonna be a very like laundry chat situation, just without laundry because I'm not folding clothes right now. So we're gonna chat about something that you guys have been asking a bunch ever since I got pregnant with baby number 4. I've gotten a million questions, like anytime I open up questions like about, is this the last baby? Is there a specific number that Joe and I are getting to? Like, will there be baby number 5, 6, 7? Like, what is our number? Thoughts on large families. So that's what we're gonna chit chat about, sharing just my thoughts on some of this stuff. A lot of this stuff, like this entire topic, is very controversial, so I'm sure there will be lots and lots of opinions, which like I welcome you to share your opinions. Just don't be a jerk about it, you know, like these again are my thoughts I'm sharing with you guys as my friends, so don't come for me. Basically, this is my thoughts and what Joe and I are going to be doing for our life, and like that really shouldn't upset anyone to the point where they feel like attacking me. So a lot to unpack here, so that's why I wanted to like just make a dedicated video to it. I guess let's rewind a little bit, because if you do happen to be new here, first of all, I am Kayla. Welcome. Super nice to meet you. Welcome to the chaos, which is my life and, you know, my YouTube channel. I'm pregnant with baby number 4, and my husband and I, we are Catholic. We practice NFP, which is natural family planning. I actually have a video, that I shared many years ago, or a couple years ago. So I may link that one down below. That was just kind of like, if I'm not mistaken, it was like an NFP 101, in case you're like curious about what this is or what this means or like why we do it, all of that. But it's important that like I share that Joe and I are practicing natural family planning. Again, for us, it's very much a decision that we have made coming from a faith perspective. And I'm really not here to like convince you of anything. But as Catholics, Joe and I, it's trying to be faithful practicing Catholics, we do practice NFP, natural family planning. We're open to life, which means lots of different things. No, it does not mean that we just have to have 10 children and as many as God blesses me with. Like, that's not what the church teaches. So I also want to like dive into that. But it does mean that the only way for us to prevent getting pregnant is to abstain at certain times in the month. Like, as Catholics, like I'm gonna be really TMI here and like very specific for you guys in case you're curious about how this works or whatever. But as Catholics, again, just a Catholic thing here, we believe that lots of things are off the table. So hormonal birth control is off the table, IUDs, like anything that actually prevents your body from getting pregnant, getting your tubes tied, having a vasectomy, like all of those things are off the table for us. Wearing condoms, the pull-out method, like literally all of that is off the table. So the only way that you cannot get pregnant as a Catholic is to not have sex during your fertile period. So I hope that I'm being very clear about that. That's literally just the specifics that you need to know so that you maybe have a basic understanding of what we're talking about here. Now, I'm not even gonna touch on much of like the why we do this or why we believe this, because again, I'm not here to necessarily convince you of it. I will try to link some resources down below for you of like where the Catholic Church comes up with this, like where in the Bible, like does it say this, like where does this teaching come from? And I think just overall, it just comes from this overarching theme that children are blessing. There's a lot of like real beauty into why the church teaches this. But again, I'm not equipped enough to teach you that. Like there are plenty of books and podcasts and stuff which really share like just why it's a beautiful thing. So Joe and I are on board with this, but I think whether you're Catholic or you're not Catholic, if you're Christian, like if you've read the Bible, I think that we can all agree that like in the Bible, at no time has it been like someone has been given a child and they're like, wow, this is a curse, right? Like the opposite is usually true. Like usually the curse is that someone is barren or can't have kids, and then the blessing that God gives is like there is a child, and everyone is always super happy about that and they are thrilled. So there's like this goodness that is children and life. Like that is what everybody usually wants, right, in the Bible. So since I'm sure already I have lost people because some people are like, this chick is freaking crazy. I get it. It was a very hard topic to come to terms with, and maybe I'll sit down another day to share more of my thoughts on this whole process. At the beginning, when I first learned about NFP and what the church teaches, I was really upset about it. I was very much like, what in the heck? Like, what does this mean? Like, why? Like, explain this to me. But I promise that as I learned about the beauty of it and like what it means for like Joe and I and our marriage and our intimacy and when we come together. Like there's just so much more purpose to it and beauty and like the way that God designed our bodies and what he designed like sex to be. Like it's very much a beautiful thing, and it has blessed us in many ways. But that's kind of like where we're coming from in terms of when we think about our family. So all of that to say, like we had never practiced NFP until we were like starting to try or, you know, being open to life with Sean. You guys know the story. Joe didn't want any more kids after the first two. Then he had his big conversion and he came to the church and he was baptized, all of that. And he embraced this and became open to life. And at that point, we really didn't have any reason not to welcome another child into the world. And so Sean was born. And so when Sean was about a year old, we also were like, okay, there's a chance that I could, like my womb could be open. Like I could get my cycle back anytime and we could get pregnant again. Like we discerned whether or not we were in a position to welcome another child. So long story short, I'm pregnant, boom, like there's a baby. So now the question always is like, are you gonna have more? Like, will there be more children in the future? Like, what is your number that you're gonna stop at? So what I like to tell people is that after this child is born, Joe and I are really going to have to sit down and discern how we feel about having another one. And we are allowed to do that in the teaching of the Catholic Church, even still being faithful to what the church teaches. The church never says like, no matter what, just keep popping out kids. Church actually teaches that we have to be responsible parents, we have to be responsible stewards of the resources that we have, and that we are called to discern whether or not it makes sense to have another child. And if we discern that there are valid reasons to abstain and to like maybe take a break from having kids, or like, hey, we have discerned that we are at our max capacity and we cannot have any more children, the church tells us that that is okay for you to decide that. But once you've decided that, it's not that you can say, hey, I'm gonna get my tubes tied. Instead, what they say is you can work within the natural design of your body, the way that God gave us a cycle, and you can figure out when you are fertile, when you are not fertile, and when you are fertile, you just do not have sex. And that's the whole NFP protocol and learning the different NFP methods so that you know when you're fertile and not, but I'm not getting into any of that. So that discernment process is really given to us and we're told to pray about it. I'm sure that you can consult with a priest to give you kind of feedback. There are like valid reasons not to continue having children. Like if you can't put food on the table, if you're broke and starving, like it may not be responsible to have another child at that point. And the church teaches that it's okay and actually prudent and responsible to not continue having kids. So I just want to make that clear because I think a lot of times people just assume that, oh, all these Catholic families, they just have 8 kids and they just have to keep popping out kids and be a kid factory. Some people may interpret the teachings of the church that way, but the actual teaching is not that way. And then I'm sure that there's going to be a bunch of people in the comments saying, yes, the church teaches you just have to continue to open the womb. The problem, I think, comes into like, you're discerning like what actually constitutes like a valid reason to abstain from having kids, or again, just prolonging the period, like spacing out children better. I think that's where it gets tricky because really the church leaves it to you. But like I've said this a million times, I think that there's a difference between, hey, I can't put food on the table, I can't pay my bills, so I think it's wise to not have another child right now, versus, hey, if I have another child right now, I can't go to Disney 3 times. Like you see, like there's a difference there. Now, again, that's not between me and that person, like that's between that person and God. But I think that there's a lot of praying that is involved, trying to analyze what's in your heart, like why you are choosing not to. Like for example, if you're someone who like has a medical condition, like, hey, being pregnant would cause me to like be harmed or like make it impossible for me to care for my other kids, like it would actually be wise to not continue to have children. So that would be like a valid reason. I tend to think that if even like mentally, if you were like at your wit's end and could barely even function, couldn't get out of bed to deal with your 4 children, should you have a 5th? Probably not, right? Because again, part of what God asks of us is to be good stewards of our time, our talent, our treasures, like all of the things. And I think responsible parenthood is what there should be more focus on, right? We're called to be good parents to the kids that we already have. So if having another one is going to mean that like you cannot care for your other children, then that's not even like fair to them. But I think the problem there is that a lot of the reasons why these days people choose to not continue having children, it's based on a lot of worldly things. It's based off of, again, like the extras that we want to give our kids. Like we won't be able to put our kids in private school if we continue to have kids, or we won't be able to take 10 vacations. Like that issue of like just always wanting to give our children financially, I think that sometimes stops a lot of people from continuing to like open their hearts to having another kid. So I'm sure you can tell, like it's kind of like a dance. It's kind of a lot of praying and discerning, and what is right for you as a couple may be different from like what's right for another couple, for another family. I think a lot of it has to do with like how much support you have. Like for example, if you were living somewhere and then you moved somewhere else, you don't have a support system, it's hard for you to get things done, it's hard for you to just balance the everyday. Again, I don't think the church would frown upon you saying like, hey, I'm gonna take a couple years of a break or indefinitely, as long as you are practicing the methods and the teachings of the church in like using NFP to abstain, then that could be just like a valid reason to, you know, hold off from having kids at the moment. So super rambly, I get it. I'm just trying to show, I guess, like that there's a lot of factors that go into making that decision. So now that God willing, baby will be here in June, will we be at our max capacity? My initial thought is that at least for right now, we may be at our max capacity. Like we may. And so for us, it would be wise. It would probably be more showing of responsible parenting and responsible parenthood to practice NFP for at least a year or two, and to continue to discern when would be a good time to be open to life, if ever again. So that's kind of like our plan right now. Again, I'm open to listening to the movements of God in our life. And if we have this baby and this baby is like just sleeping through the night and everything is beautiful, and I feel like, wow, like I could take on another one, then like I'm open to that. I'm open to assessing as we go, but I'm not like, it's not a race to me. I'm not trying to have 10 kids. Like I'm not trying to have one more kid than my friend. Like that's not what it's about. I think it's more about trying to figure out like, what do I have the capacity for? Financially, mentally, just like with the logistics of life, with the amount of support that I have. And when I had Sean, like it was very clear to me that I could have more kids. Like after Sean, like yes, it's been hard and it's been challenging, but I intuitively, like I just knew that there was no reason for us to not have a fourth or not be open to a fourth, right? We could have been open to a fourth and then not gotten pregnant. Like that was, I mean, very possible. But I think Joe and I knew that financially we were in a fine place. Like maybe it would require that we downsize a bit or that we scale back, but we still have margin, right? So that's something that we took into account when we were, you know, being open this time around. So for me, it's not really a number. Like I can't tell you right now, hey, we're only gonna have 4 kids. Or hey, I'm really gonna go until we have like 7. Like I don't think it's about a number. It's about what is my actual realistic capacity. And it could change like from day to day, like from today to tomorrow, like God forbid, like one of my kids could get sick. And at that point I could be like, okay, I can't have ever another child because all of my resources now are going towards medical bills and medical, you know, dealings with one of my children. Like things change every day. So those are the things that I think we're being called to discern and to like take into account. But I'm not gonna lie that it's scary. Like I'm 34 and that means that I have potentially a lot of fertile years left, right? Because you're fertile until you hit menopause. And for us in the Catholic Church who are trying to be faithful to NFP, like it means many years of, hey, if we decide we're not gonna get pregnant, then it means that we are again, like going a couple of weeks at a time without having sex with our husbands. And that sucks. Like, that is not a fun thing. Definitely like just a sacrifice that we make to be faithful. But again, now that I understand why and like the reasoning behind it, like it makes sense. And it's something that I'm committed to moving forward with, and I'm committed to, you know, embracing. But 1000%, it would be way easier to say, hey, I think we're done having kids. Like, let's just get you to have a vasectomy, Joseph. Like, you go get snipped and then I don't have to worry about it. And then we can just have all the sex we want and not get pregnant. Like, that would be way easier. It's just not something that's like on the table for us. And then even if we are practicing NFP, so let's say again, I'm 34, this baby is going to be born, like I could have many years of fertile time left. Let's say that I'm abstaining, we discern that we're not going to have any more kids. Like, there's a chance that like we could still get pregnant, right? Like, NFP methods and protocols are very highly effective, like somewhere in the 90th percentile. Like, they're scientifically studied. It's not just like you're using an app and trying to guess when you're not fertile and oops, now you're pregnant. Like, are there oops babies that happen with people that are, you know, practicing NFP? For sure. But it's not like it's only a 30% accuracy. Like, if you're doing it correctly and you're following the protocols and the methods that you're using to track your cycle or whatever, there's a high effectiveness rate there. It's just you have to actually do it properly. But the reason why the church allows us to even do that is because within that, like, we still leave room open for God to do his thing. Like, we still leave room for God to say, you know what? I think actually you are going to get pregnant. Whereas when you take permanent measures or you do something to like physically block the sperm from, you know, meeting the egg, like then it's harder to leave that like room for God to do his thing, if that makes sense. So that is my long-winded answer to that question. We will continue to discern at different points in our life what is going to make sense for us. Now, we could have the fourth, right? And we could discern that we are open to a fifth. I mean, just sitting here now, it's a scary thought. It's a scary thought because like to have 5 kids is a lot, right? Like just the idea, honestly, of having 4 kids. Like, I would be a liar if I told you that I wasn't scared. Like, I'm excited and I know that it's going to be a blessing, but it can also like be true that I am nervous and scared about adding another child into our life. Like, it's a scary thing. I know that more is going to be required of me. I know that it is going to mean, you know, just like having to balance the family and doing homeschooling with the other kids and with a baby and a toddler. Like, it's still in a sense like a sacrifice to have children. And I think that's something that I've been reflecting on a lot. It is a blessing for sure. And like I said, in the Bible, anytime that somebody was given a kid, it was like, thank you, God, that you have blessed me. It was never seen as like a curse. And it's weird because like in society today, like you would never hear someone say like, hey, we're going to give you $10,000 extra dollars. Like, nobody would say, oh my gosh, no, like I already have money. Like, I already have enough. Like, people see money as like, you can give me indefinite amounts of money, right? And like people would be so happy. You would never really see it as a curse, you know, usually. But when we talk about kids and adding members into our family, it's almost like society does see that as like a curse. Like, no, I'm good. I already have 2. I don't need any more. Like, I already have 3. Like, you crazy? I could never have a 4th. So just reflecting on that has me like spinning my wheels lately. Like, where are we? Where like kids are seen as like a bad thing, but money is like a good thing. And like, just thoughts on that. I don't know. It's weird. This is how my brain works. So yes, it is a blessing, a life, a soul, like a soul that potentially has the ability to reach heaven one day. Like, that is such a blessing to be part of that, to create life. I think that's amazing, but it is an actual practice, also a sacrifice, especially for us as moms, because like we're doing most of it, right? Like, we're birthing them, we're carrying them, then they're born and we're taking care of them. Like, it's a lot that we do. And like, it is the most sanctifying thing that you can do to be a mother. Like, I believe that 1000%. Ever since I became a mom, I realized how selfish I am, how much I like to just do my own thing and not being told what to do. And like, you can't do that when you're a mom. Like, you give your life to other humans. And it's like you have to be selfless in that way. Not that you can never have anything of your own, or not that you have to completely neglect yourself, but your needs come after another person's needs. And it's very sanctifying to do that. And I think a lot of people tend to be scared of doing that. They just don't want to, because it just sounds really crappy. Like, and we live in a very selfish society. Like, that's just straight up. We live in a society where it's all about like, you do you, boo, whatever makes you happy. It's all about your happiness. And like, I think that kids are a gift. And I wish that we could get to the point where people saw it more as that. But at the same time, like, I understand like the mentality. Like, I understand where that apprehension to have kids comes from. Hence why when you see a family that has like 10 kids, you're like, wow, they're freaking nuts. Like, who would do that? They must not have a TV, and they must just be like these weird Christian people. It's seen as very odd, but I think that the more that you like dive into your faith, and the more that you're seeing it from like a different lens, you end up realizing just how beautiful that is. Like, if that family can manage, and I think that kind of ties into like my thoughts on big families. If that family can manage, if they have the finances, the support, the mom has the mental capacity for it, like, that is such a beautiful thing to witness. I think that that is beautiful and amazing. But at the same time, I do think that we need to maybe like stop idolizing that, because I don't think every family is called to have 10 kids. I think that if you set it up so that people think the only way to be holy is to have 10 kids, then sometimes like that may not be the right situation for them, and it is not responsible for them to have 10 kids and then the children suffer because you're trying to be like holier than everybody else by having X number of kids. Does any of that make sense? Or am I just here sounding absolutely insane? Like, I see a lot of, I follow a lot of people on Instagram that have big families. And like, when you go into the comment section, dude, it's like back and forth, and it just gets nasty. And like, I understand, again, I understand both sides. I think like I've made it very clear, if done responsibly, it can work well and it can be a beautiful thing. But I do also think that we should be careful that we're not doing the whole big family thing at the expense of the other children in the family. And so that's something that we will always continue to pray about and to keep in mind as we potentially continue to grow our family. But again, what works for my family is always going to be different than what works for your family. But if I can leave you just with one encouragement or one, I don't know, one thing, is like, I get a lot of people who ask me like, how did you know you want another kid? Or like, I'm scared to have another kid. Like, I'm scared too. I'm scared to have even this child or more kids. Like, I'm scared, but my fear does not outweigh like what I know I'm going to gain in having another child in my life. Like, I'm not at that point where I'm letting fear come in the way of this gift that God has given me. So maybe that's something to think of. Kids, 1000% are the only thing you get to take to heaven with you. And I know it's so cliche and it sounds so dumb, but like, truly, you don't get to take your house. You don't get to take your vacation. I mean, yes, like you get your memories, maybe, I don't know, of like the vacation you had. But the idea of like being in heaven one day and being there, God willing, alongside all my kids, like, there's nothing better than that. So definitely pray about it if it's something that you're kind of like on the fence about. And I'm sure that God will make it clear to you like in what way to move forward. So that's it, guys. Just a little insight into my heart on all of this. I hope we can still be friends. Hope you don't think I'm a total nut job now. If you want more talk or more discussion about NFP, about the logistics of that, about like what that looks like within Joe and I's marriage, or just thoughts on it, whatever, just let me know. But I'm gonna try to have some resources on that for you guys. But there's information out there if you want it, and if you want to read into it. There's amazing books. One of my favorite books is Holy Sex, a great book about intimacy within a Catholic marriage, what it looks like, things that are okay, things that are not okay, why it's not okay or why it is okay. Awesome book. I need to actually hide it because now that Riley can read, I'm scared she's gonna get a hold of it and start going through it. That would be bad. Anything from Christopher West is good. I have also in my bedside table The Good News About Sex and Marriage, which is a phenomenal book. Again, if you're interested in the why, like why does this girl do this? Like why can't they just use a condom? Or why can't they just like get a vasectomy? Like if you have those kinds of questions, it may be worth picking up one of those books and reading them because it's gonna explain things from a faith perspective a lot better than I could ever. So anyway, I love you. If we're still friends, thank you for being here. And that's it. I love your faces. I will see you guys soon in my next video. Bye guys.